According to Commander-in-Chief Syrski, the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration remains one of the key and hottest areas of the front today. Here, as I understand it, the enemy has concentrated its main forces. What is the situation specifically in the area of responsibility of your brigade? How is the enemy behaving there?
Well, as everyone knows, the administrative territorial borders of Donetsk region are one of the main arguments for why the enemy attacked Ukraine. And it is clear that Sloviansk and Kramatorsk are a certain priority for the enemy. And it is concentrating a large number of its strike forces there. But the geographical features of this area, meaning the hilly terrain, allow the armed forces to more or less control the situation. The situation is such that all the enemy can do is carry out airstrikes to inflict damage on civilian infrastructure, to harm local residents, civilians, and to try, through airstrikes, to somehow influence the situation on the battlefield and force the armed forces of Ukraine out of their positions. That is why the enemy is actively using guided aerial bombs, high explosive fragmentation bombs, unmanned attack drones, and is constantly launching assaults against our positions. Moreover, taking advantage of the weather conditions and the fact that there are already leaves on the trees, which provides some camouflage, they carry out assaults in small groups. But the armed forces are holding the defense. So the situation is tense but predictable and stable. Sorry for putting it that way.
It is what it is. The spokesperson for the 11th Corps stated that the Russians are not only replenishing the forces they lost in assaults in this direction, but are also bringing in new units. How true is this? To what extent does the enemy currently outnumber us? And what is the level of their training? What can you tell us?
Well, the fact that the enemy has resources is already well known to everyone. The enemy is a large country. There is information that the well-known Rubicon unit, an elite enemy unit, was operating in our sector. The enemy has certain rear resources. We haven't heard of any forces being redeployed from other sections of the front to our direction. However, the consistency the enemy shows in terms of assaults suggests that they do have some resources. However, these assaults are not as large-scale and intense as they were a few years ago. These are isolated incidents, but their number is increasing. We are seeing a trend toward growth. Every day, up to 10 assaults have to be repelled by the Ukrainian armed forces in this sector. Accordingly, the number of drones in the air is also increasing, because the enemy is constantly conducting reconnaissance and is trying to strike both the logistics of the Ukrainian armed forces and civilian infrastructure from the air. I think everyone saw on the internet that PR stunt the enemy carried out on May 9th, spreading propaganda materials in Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. The enemy is trying to influence the civilian population. Because if a shell lands in the city center, well, excuse me, there are no Ukrainian armed forces there. By doing this, he is trying to influence the situation. But I repeat, the situation is under control.
That's good. And this Rubicon, is it really that formidable, that frightening?
I don't think so. That's my personal opinion. I think our enemy is prone to myths. If it really were that frightening, maybe it would somehow affect the situation.
Mr. Serhiy, as I understand it, your division's work involves destroying aerial targets, protecting the front line and logistics. You didn't come empty-handed today. All of this is so interesting. And let's start with something. Let's, for example, start with this one. I understand these are drones, interceptors, right? Yes, interceptors. Let's start with this black one.
This black one is the well-known P1 Sun, a drone code. It's a quadcopter type. It's an interceptor, a very successful and effective interceptor. I think it has already taken down maybe even 1,000 Shaheds. The drone stays in the air for 15 to 17 minutes, so its operational range is short. It's not complete here, it's missing the warhead. After all, we're in the studio, not at the front. That's why the drone has proven itself very well. And most importantly, if it completes its mission, it can return and land. It doesn't need any special conditions for takeoff or landing. It takes off like a quadcopter and lands the same way. It's a very successful option, and it's great that the developers created something like this.
Do you have enough of them in operation?
Yes, we have enough of these drones. There is reliable supply of such drones from the Ministry of Defense, so in this regard, everything is fine.
Now, let's have you tell us more about this drone in detail. As I understand, you told me before we went on air that it has a net launcher. Tell us about it. Its main task.
This drone also has a very funny name, Chupacabra. It's a typical drone, and it has a net launcher attached to it, as you can see. The main task of this setup is to operate on the front line in logistics to work against enemy Mavics, against drones, quadcopters, and waiting drones. This helps to ensure the safety of logistics. And how
does this net launcher work?
Explain. Whenever an enemy surveillance drone is successfully detected, the operator carefully pulls the trigger, and then a specialized net is launched directly from here. It falls onto the spinning propellers, no causing the propellers to become completely tangled, and the drone eventually crashes to the ground. And this drone, what
about it is
good?
It's fine. It can return back to
its operator. The net launcher is reloaded. The battery is replaced if necessary, if it is already discharged, and the drone continues its flight. This allows for multiple uses of both the drone and the net launcher, which is very effective and minimizes the costs of neutralizing enemy aerial targets.
Mr. Serhi, you talk so interestingly about drones, but I want to remind everyone that today we are raising funds for pickup trucks. They are just as important on the front line. Vehicles at the front. I understand there are a lot of drones, a lot of different UAVs, but as I see it, you can't get anywhere today without vehicles. That's why you have the payment details, the QR code, and the card number. We are raising funds for pickup trucks for the Anti-Aircraft Missile Battalion of the 54th Brigade. And I kindly ask you to contribute to this cause. And as they say, for dessert, we have a very nice, I'll call it a machine, which has a lovely name, Hot Dog, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us about this blue little plane. What is this Hot Dog? What kind of drone is it, and what are its tasks?
This is an interceptor-type aircraft drone. The manufacturer called it Hot Dog because of the shape of the fuselage and the camera at the front. It resembles a French hot dog. That's why it has this name. The drone stays in the air longer than the P-1 itself. The drone also has a greater range. All of this is due to its aerodynamic shape. But there are other challenges because this drone requires a certain surface for takeoff. It takes off from a catapult or a bungee cord. It may not complete its mission and return back. But for landing, this drone requires the presence of a more or less gentle and forgiving landing surface, which could be either a grassy field or a recently harvested field. Then it can be safely landed back on the ground and fully reused for future missions. But when working together, these two specialized drones can offer an incredibly dense and effective layer of air defense against incoming hostile enemy drones. Because here you have high-speed interception capabilities, and there you have long-lasting flight endurance. And this is a very effective combination.
Mr. Serhi, I see that we have a lot of military personnel coming in and a wide range of drone technologies, a very powerful lineup, you could say. Tell me, please, what about the enemy? How are they doing? As I understand it, they're also learning from experience and developing just like we are, right? How are they doing with UAVs?
The enemy is also moving forward. They're not standing still. The enemy is scaling up. For example, everyone knows this. The enemy's Molnia is a very cheap drone that is being developed and can be used for strikes. In April, our division destroyed 136 Molnias belonging to the enemy. That's a large number. And that's just in our sector. We understand that the enemy's production capabilities are quite extensive. The enemy is investing in all of this. But we are seeing a certain trend toward using cheaper options, such as the Molnia, as opposed to the more expensive ones the enemy has, like Orlans, Zalas, and other devices they use. So this logic suggests to us that maybe the enemy is already running out of resources. They're having to do all this, and we're on the right track.
We are definitely on the right track, and we really like this logic as well. Mr. Serhi, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your service. Thank you for not coming empty-handed. I also want to thank the viewers for joining our fundraiser. I hope the card will still be available, and you can keep donating and donating for the pickups. And let me remind you that our guest today was Serhi Luhovic. He came to us from the Sloviansk direction under a pseudonym, deputy head of the group. Personnel of the Anti-Aircraft Missile Battalion of the 54th Separate Mechanized Brigade, named after Hetman Ivan Mazepa. Thank you very much.